What is up, guys? Welcome back to another upSchool video. Today we're going to be learning about Class 10 Science, Chapter 6, Life Processes, Autotrophic Nutrition. So I've made a video on photosynthesis, which will basically also explain the same topics I'll be explaining right now, but this is a Class 7 chapter, and we're doing Class 10, but you guys can check out this video if you want. So we're learning about autotrophic nutrition. So first of all, let's get into nutrition. We know nutrition is one of the major life processes of humans. And nutrition, the definition is a process where an organism takes food and utilizes it to get energy. What do you make out of this? Well, we know that to perform the maintenance jobs required for our body, we need energy. We also need energy to maintain a state of order and for growth and development of the body. Now, how do we get this energy? Do we get it by default? No. The energy has to be transferred from one source to another source. And an organism has to be able to obtain it and utilize it to get the energy from the food, which is where we get the energy from. This is called nutrition. So nutrition differs in different organisms based on the type of food, the availability of food, and what kind of nutritive apparatus they use to obtain it. So the two types of nutrition, autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. So in autotrophic nutrition, we have the organism, and in order to obtain the food that they need, they can't just do it on their own, as they don't have the body designed to support this. Instead, they are able to make their own food using a process called photosynthesis to adhere to their carbon and energy requirements for the state of order to be maintained in the body. So autotrophic nutrition. It's a mode of nutrition where organisms take in simple inorganic substances, such as carbon dioxide in water, H2O. So these are simple inorganic substances that are in our environment. And what the organisms that follow autotrophic mode of nutrition, they take in these inorganic substances, and using the energy from the sun, they're able to convert it to complex organic substances, such as glucose. And these are of high energy sources, which they can again convert into chemical energy and use it for their metabolic activities. So the organisms that follow autotrophic nutrition are known as autotrophs. Examples of autotrophs include green plants and photosynthetic bacteria. All of these autotrophs are able to take in inorganic substances using the energy from the sun and convert them to complex organic substances that they again use. So what is photosynthesis? Well, that process that the autotrophs follow to turn the simple inorganic substances into the energy, that process is known as photosynthesis. Photo means light and synthesis means to make. I'll discuss that later. So it's the process in which an autotroph takes in carbon dioxide, H2O, and in the presence of sunlight, which is obtained by chlorophyll, they convert it into carbohydrates, which is a form of energy very useful for the plants, plus oxygen, which is a byproduct. So photo means light and synthesis means to make. So we have a plant, and how are the carbon dioxide, H2O, and sunlight that they need for photosynthesis being obtained? Well, the carbon dioxide comes from the pores present in the leaf, and the H2O comes from the roots inside the soil. And the sunlight comes from the chloroplasts, which have chlorophyll on the leaves as well. So how is carbon dioxide obtained? Well, on the surface of the leaf, if we would take the cross section, we would notice that between the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis, we have these set of tissues, and these are responsible during the process of photosynthesis. So this region between the upper epidermis and lower epidermis of the leaf is known as the mesophyll. And the mesophyll has these long parenchyma, rectangular tissues, and this is the palisade parenchyma. And they contain the chloroplasts. They contain many chloroplasts, and they're the principal center for photosynthesis. This isn't in the syllabus, but I just wanted to explain this so we have a better idea of where exactly the photosynthesis takes place. Also, we have these polygon-shaped tissues, and these are the spongy parenchyma. And here we see these small pores and openings in the lower epidermis, and that's where we have the guard cells. And this is called the stomata. And the stomata are the pores present in the lower epidermis, where they have guard cells which regulate the opening and closing of the stomata, and this is where the gaseous exchange takes place for the cell, and that's how it's able to absorb the carbon dioxide required. Now, you might be wondering why it's present on the lower epidermis. Well, the stomata is on the lower epidermis because that's where less sunlight is received, and thus there'll be less transpiration, as the stomatal pores are more likely to release water. Now, stomata, singular stoma, consists of two guard cells, and you notice here that the cell walls are more thickened in the interior walls, and each guard cell has many chloroplasts, which we know chloroplasts are also present in the parenchyma, in the mesophyll, but they're also present in the guard cells as well. Here's the chloroplast, the green dot, which are noted down here, and they might ask a question in the board exam, which are what are the small green dots, and just remember that refers to chloroplasts. Also, we note that the center is the nucleus. Also, make a note that all the chloroplast is present on the periphery of the guard cell. So carbon dioxide, it enters into these small pores, and that's when they enter into the air cavities present in the leaf surface, like in the mesophyll as we've seen. And after that, photosynthesis occurs and the carbon dioxide is utilized, and after that the byproduct of photosynthesis, which is oxygen, is also released through the stomata, or it's directly utilized for respiration for the stomata, for the plant. So the plant closes the stoma when it doesn't need more carbon dioxide, which obviously, like, carbon dioxide isn't completely necessary for the plant during the nighttime when photosynthesis does not take place. So they close it whenever they need it, and they also close it to prevent water loss, as I've mentioned. So the function of the guard cells is they regulate the opening and closing of the stomata. Now these guard cells can either shrink or swell up, and they become flaccid and turgid, which closes the stomatal pore or opens it. Whenever water exits out of the guard cells, which can occur due to exosmosis, then that's when the guard cells shrink. And when they shrink, it actually causes the stomatal pore to be closed, as they're becoming more flaccid. But then again, whenever water enters into the guard cells through the process of endosmosis, we know that it forms a hypertonic solution, and then the guard cells swell up and they become turgid, and that actually opens up the stomata. So that's how the carbon dioxide enters into the air cavities, and then it's being utilized for photosynthesis. So we know how carbon dioxide is being obtained by the plant, but how is water being obtained by the plant for photosynthesis? Water is an also important component. So in terrestrial and aquatic animals, we know that they are already found in water, so they don't really need to acquire water from anything, as they're living off the water, right? So they can just directly absorb it. Whereas for terrestrial animals, since they are on the soil, they have to use the groundwater present in the soil to absorb water and other important nutrients that they need. And the water is taken up by the xylem vessels from the root hairs that absorb the water present in the soil. So along with water, they also take up many nutrients present, like nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, and magnesium. Nitrogen is actually very important, as it is involved in the synthesis of proteins, and it also synthesizes many other materials, so it's very significant for the plant, nitrogen. So nitrogen is absorbed as either nitrates or nitrites. Nitrogen's original form cannot be directly absorbed by the plant. The atmospheric nitrogen that's present in the atmosphere, in the air, it cannot be directly taken by the plant, so it's either taken up as the nitrates and nitrites in the soil, or the atmospheric nitrogen is being fixed by some bacteria, and then it's being absorbed. Example of this is rhizobia. So now we know how water is being absorbed for photosynthesis. Now we'll discuss sunlight. So we know that in the leaf we have chloroplasts, and chloroplasts contain chlorophyll, which directly absorb the sunlight. So 3 events that occur in photosynthesis. So we discussed how each of the raw materials required for photosynthesis are obtained, but what actually goes on inside the leaf that actually is able to produce the carbohydrates necessary. So firstly is the absorption of light energy by chlorophyll. So the plant obviously requires the energy to be able to combine the raw materials to be able to make the carbohydrate, and that energy comes from the sunlight, and sunlight is absorbed by the chlorophyll. But light energy cannot be directly used, so light energy has to be converted into chemical energy, and after that water is being split into the hydrogen and oxygen molecules. So let's take this hydrogen H2O molecule of water, and through the process of photolysis, it's being split into hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen is being used to make the carbohydrate, and the oxygen is just being left there, and it's either utilized for photosynthesis and for respiration, or it's being left as a byproduct, as we've discussed, and it's released out. So this is a very important key term, important point. The third event that occurs in photosynthesis is the reduction of carbon dioxide into carbohydrates. So another reduction is basically the gaining of electrons, and carbon dioxide does this, and it combines with the hydrogen, they turn into carbohydrates, which, as we know, is energy for the plant. So the carbohydrate that's formed is glucose, which is C6H12O6. The equation for photosynthesis. So we know that's carbon dioxide plus water, and in the presence of the light energy of sunlight obtained by chlorophyll, it's being turned into carbohydrate glucose C6H12O6 plus oxygen, which is a byproduct, and water is also released as a byproduct. So if you were to balance this, it would be 6 CO2 plus 12 H2O gives rise to C6H12O6 plus 6 O2 plus 6 H2O. So we know that this carbohydrate is called glucose. But glucose that's not directly used by the plant is actually stored in the form of starch. So starch is just basically a polymer of multiple glucose, and it's basically the internal reserve for energy. So whenever the plant needs the energy again, it's stored in starch, and then it's being converted back into glucose, which is then utilized. Similarly, for animals, they store their energy in the form of glycerol, where it's directly not used. So we know glucose is the main product, and oxygen and H2O are the byproducts of photosynthesis. So they might ask a question like, what are the byproducts of photosynthesis? Well, then you'll answer, it's oxygen and water. So why do we need photosynthesis? Like, in our day-to-day life, what is the significance of photosynthesis? Does it really impact our life in any way? Without photosynthesis, what can possibly go wrong? Well, a lot. We know that photosynthesis releases oxygen, and this actually reduces our carbon footprint, because through the process of photosynthesis, the plant is absorbing carbon dioxide. So that's obviously reducing our carbon footprint, right? That's why they say plant trees, because if we plant trees, then that will absorb the carbon dioxide and thus reduce our carbon footprint. Another thing is that it provides oxygen for other organisms. As I discussed, photosynthesis, the byproduct is oxygen, and it's being utilized by organisms, even for us. And also, we need photosynthesis because it helps plants survive. And if plants survive, then also indirectly means that heterotrophs survive, because heterotrophs are directly or indirectly dependent on the plants. So that's why even we can't survive if there's no photosynthesis, because we need oxygen, and we need plants so that we can eat them, and we depend on other heterotrophs that eat plants. And we also need to reduce our carbon footprint, because thanks to greenhouse emissions, we might as well die due to global warming, but thanks to photosynthesis, the carbon dioxide that we release is actually being utilized, and it's giving out oxygen, which is also, again, useful for us. So here's a bonus question which I've given to you guys. I hope you guys answer this in the comments below. I mentioned all of this, so if you guys know the answer to this, please put it in the comments below. And that's about it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. If you have any questions, please let me know. Peace.